Hello and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and then available on demand and on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It is Thursday, January 19, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Good evening, I'm John Hayden, and this evening we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in the LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
We've got so much to cover tonight, and it's so fun. We've got a lot of good stories, but before we get to them, we've got to get to our good and very fun panel. Let's begin by welcoming anchor Dr. Edward Summers. Dr. Summers currently serves as a primary therapist and program director at Eye Care Treatment Center in West Palm Beach and primary therapist at United Recovery Project in Lake Worth, both here in Florida. Prior to working in the treatment industry, Dr. Summers was the founder and CEO of a New York-based nonprofit, the Thinkubator Incorporated, an innovation and workplace development organization that crafts innovative strategies to complex local challenges that have global implications. Dr. Summers previously held faculty ranks in public administration and policy, political science, and executive leadership positions at some of the nation's most prominent universities, such as Marist College, Union College, Long Island University. But I still see Ball State not on the resume, but you're young and you've still got time to go, so dare to dream. Welcome, Dr. Summers.
Thank you so much, and it's great to be here. Let's welcome anchor Tariq Turjman. Tariq is a queer Guatemalan Palestinian comedian living in Miami. He is an instructor, improv actor, and producer at Villain Theater, where he hosts his own late-night show, Tonight with Tariq. He has opened for Alana Glazer, Carlos Santos, Francisco Ramos, and Brittany Brave. This past year, he produced Gay 8 Festival's first comedy stage and headlined Villain Theater's annual Pride Comedy Festival, No Fear, We're Queer. Good evening, Tariq.
Thank you, Edward.
Is the comedy stage coming back to Gay 8 this year?
I believe it is. I believe it is.
Will you be
I can't officially say yes yet.
Can you unofficially say if you'll be headlining it?
I can't say. I don't know. No, it's not a headlining show. It's a features. We're going to feature over 10 to 12 queer up-and-coming comedians. So.
Okay.
You know something, we're going to hold you hostage.
Yes, I know a lot. I know a lot. I can't say anything. Jonathan is going to kill me. Jonathan's going to kill me. Anyways, back to Edward. No, not Edward. We've introduced Edward. Sorry.
Back to me.
Done.
I'm a terrific host. Hire me. Let's welcome anchor, the one and only DJ Nena. Yeah. She's a resident DJ for Lit Bar, Wilton Manors, and a military veteran from New Jersey. DJ Nena has a BM in commercial music technology and an MA in English and creative writing. She has been a local DJ and music producer for the LGBTQ+ community of South Florida for over 2 decades. Good evening, DJ Nena.
Good stuff, good stuff. Buenas noches, mi gente. Let's welcome anchor Ryan Hurst. Ryan is the Senior Major Gifts and Events Officer for National LGBTQ Task Force. He has worked in social justice for over 10 years with organizations like Lambda Legal Defense and Education Fund and People for the American Way Foundation. If you're interested in advancing LGBTQ plus freedom and equality, then now is the time to register for the task force's 2023 Creating Change Conference on February 17th through the 22nd in San Francisco. Creating Change is the nation's foremost political, leadership, and skills building conference for the LGBTQ movement. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. Now is also a great time to register for Winter Party Festival, which will be March 1st through the 7th here in Miami Beach. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, January 19th, 2023, National Popcorn Day.
And let's have some for this first story. We're going to queer up drag culture and Congress. Gay Congressman George Santos' troubles increase as allegations surface he was drag queen Kitara in Brazil. According to the news article written by Marissa Cabas on the Substack site The Handbasket, George Santos, who's reportedly gone by a number of aliases in his truth-challenged past, appears to be depicted in a photo in a drag costume from 2008. The latest look in Santos' younger years was revealed to Cabas by Eula Rochard, a drag queen in Brazil and former friend of Santos. Santos and Rochard met when Rochard was allegedly an established drag queen in a Brazilian city close to Rio. The freshman congressman became a national punchline last year after he was caught in a series of lies about his college education, employment history, Jewish heritage, and other tall tales that just keep tallying up. We'll add this one. The personal story that he campaigned on was largely disproven shortly before his term in office was about to begin after a bombshell report in the New York Times. The lawmaker's long list of lies and his questionable campaign financing are under investigation by local, state, and federal officials, while prosecutors in Brazil have reopened a fraud case against him from back in 2008. Rochard said she saw Santos on Brazilian television recently and messaged her friends from when she knew Santos that she thought it was him. When her friends doubted her, she found the old photo and posted it on Instagram. She told Cabas, quote, "The picture was taken in 2008 at the Pride Parade in Brazil. George had disappeared for a little while and then returned to Brazil with a lot of money, and that was about the time when the picture was taken," end quote. In a tweet this morning, Santos denies these allegations, writing, quote, "The most recent obsession of the media claiming that I am a drag queen or performed as a drag queen is categorically false. The media continues to make outrageous claims about my life while I am working to deliver results. I will not be distracted nor fazed by this," end quote. Oh, so much to unpack here. First, if we needed another reminder to our young viewers, the internet is forever. Nothing ever goes away. This is like at the advent of smartphones. You know, we just had those grainy little cell phone cameras.
Some of those look like scanned Polaroids, so it's not just the internet. Those pictures are everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That picture was definitely looked like it was digitized for sure. They were like, I found it, clink. Let me take another picture of it and repost it.
Well, let me ask this question. Does it matter?
Does it matter? Yes, it matters.
But why?
I think it matters because he is queer, and there's a lot of talk about, drag being dangerous now, and they're trying to control drag shows. I think it's just that crazy thing that's, it's crazy that this is happening to him, and that he, they're calling him a drag queen, and there's a picture of him in drag, or, allegedly. If you look at the pictures, it does look like him, the teeth, the mouth. I mean, I'm not a picture, detective or whatever, but I think it matters a lot because of his hypocrisy. It matters to both sides. It matters to the liberals because he's a hypocrite, and it matters to the Republicans because how dare you do drag, if we're trying to come down with drag, right?
I think the context really adds a lot because the Republican Party right now is going very strongly after the LGBT community, particularly drag performers and trans people.
Yes.
without that context, I mean, the fact that he was in drag, no, that's not a big deal. Drag is a wonderful art form, and frankly, drag queens are defending our democracy right now.
Yeah.
So, like,
if he's a Democrat, he'd get more votes. You know?
So, like, I think the context matters a lot. But I do want to say that I think it's really good that he came out and addressed this right away, because these kinds of stories tend to drag on.
See what he did there? Yes.
If we had popcorn, y'all would throw it at me.
Yeah.
I think the major problem here is that his story. I mean, we don't know what the truth is with this guy, and his constituencies elected this person that they don't even know, quite frankly. And he now will be able to work in Congress. He'll be able to help pass legislation. You know, the House of Representatives is probably one of the most powerful, entities that we have, because they control the power of the purse. So it does matter in the sense that, like, we just don't know who this person is. And increasingly, every day, we're finding out new details about him. Look what's happening down in Brazil, where they have charges and they're thinking about re-prosecuting him. I mean, we just need to know who he is, and he just needs to come clean and say, this is who I am. And I think we both would embrace him, both sides, whether they're the right or the left. The right embrace him for the wrong reasons, of course, but we'll let them have their reasons. But I think the left would embrace him because, hey, you're gay. We're all about equality. We're all about people expressing themselves and being themselves. So I think both sides will, embrace him. He just needs to be real with who he is, and that's why it really matters.
Yes, I believe it does matter, but we need to be careful in the context that we address this, primarily for our young viewers, for our young constituents, because we need to say that, okay, just because he did drag is not why we're upset at him or we're calling for him to resign. He has lied about many much more substantial things on his resume, his past. He is under indictment or under investigation by 2 different world governments right now. It's also important that we say that we expect the truth from our politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless the New York Times for bringing this to our attention, but why wasn't this out on November 1st instead of December 10th or whenever it was published? It came about 6 weeks too late. And thirdly, we just need to remember to keep calm and to remind people that Congress is a very serious job, but we cannot lose our minds over something like drag, because as you said, it is absolutely an art. And of course, the Republicans are going to keep him as long as they can for this Congress, because they only have 5 votes to lose. And if they flip that seat in a special election, they'll be down to 4 seats. So I don't look for him to be forced out unless, of course, he is possibly federal and goes under federal indictment.
All right. Now let's queer up the world view. Dutch constitution will be amended to ban LGBTQ plus discrimination. Dutch lawmakers voted Tuesday to expand Article 1 of the Constitution of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to explicitly include bans on discrimination based on sexual orientation and disability. The proposition is a result of a very long initiative by the coalition party D86 and the left-wing opposition parties PVDA and GroenLinks. Following the Dutch Senate's Tuesday vote, which passed the proposal in a 56-15 vote, it now only needs to be signed by King Willem-Alexander and the responsible minister before being published in the Staatscourant, the official government publication that announces new laws. Article 1 of the Dutch Constitution already states that citizens of the Netherlands shall be treated equally and includes protections based on religion, belief, political opinion, race, or sex. It also states that discrimination on any other grounds whatsoever shall not be permitted. But Dutch LGBTQ plus advocacy organization COC Netherlands has advocated for enshrining LGBTQ plus rights in the Constitution since 2004, said that the explicit mention of sexual orientation is an important moment for the rights of people who identify with diverse genders and sexualities. It is a historic victory for the LGBTQ plus community, according to Astrid Ozenberg from COC Netherlands. LGBTQ plus rights are finally proudly mentioned in Article 1 and are no longer hidden. Ila Schofer, CEO of director and leader of the Dutch organization representing people with disabilities and chronic illness, said that the amendment is badly needed because people who live with disabilities often experience discrimination and exclusion. I think it's interesting that I believe there's a trend now and the United States is part of it, where we're reaffirming some LGBTQ plus rights because we realize that people will find loopholes to discriminate us. Absolutely. And the Netherlands is already a very progressive place, probably one of the places with, where it's the safest to be queer in terms of your job and, government protections. But, even then and there, they probably have experienced or are in fear of experiencing something like we're experiencing here in Florida, for example.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you report on, the most important thing is the explicit mentioning of our community in legislation. The more that we can get mentioned, the better off we are, the better we can protect ourselves in the future, the less questions in the future. When we have, diverse people of different ideologies questioning the laws, questioning our community, we can go right to the law, the written word, and say, here it mentions.
Exactly.
The LGBTQ plus community and disabled folks, right? And so the more we're mentioned, the better we position ourselves for the future, protect our rights.
100%.
We here in the United States still need to pass the Equality Act.
Yes.
Many people don't realize, LGBTQ and straight don't realize that LGBTQ people are not federally protected from discrimination in employment and housing and public accommodations. That's something that the task force has been working on for many years. We continue to work on. Obviously, with the divided Congress right now, that progress is going to be less likely to happen in this Congress, but we need to keep fighting that battle on the federal, state, and local levels.
Even with drag queens in office? No.
Allegedly. Allegedly. Of course, you were in the military.
Right.
So to a certain extent, you were forced out of a job that you've told me before that you really liked.
Yes. The thing is that, I was more forced out medically.
Okay.
So I have a lower back disability. It's not a secret. But did I have an option to retrain in another area? Yes. They gave me the option. The reason I didn't take the option is because I really enjoyed what I was doing and I just didn't see myself doing anything else. And we're talking about my 20-something self versus my 50-year-old self now. If I knew then what I knew now, what would I have actually chosen? But long story short, I was in before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So would I really want to stay in during that time? Probably not. It was never a comfortable situation. And believe me, there were some hidden groups within the groups. And it took a while to figure out who was who. But even then, you were still very nervous, even if you went somewhere. So,
yeah. And
it's odd, even now, to this day, I'm kind of like, am I allowed here? It's weird.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Now, of course, much of the rights here in the and God bless the Dutch. Thank you very much, Netherlands, for continuing to lead the way on this. But much of such as marriage equality is based on our 14th Amendment, which, of course, is under attack. We were name checked by Justice Thomas last summer in the Dobbs decision. I was curious, do you think that it's good to have the 14th Amendment like we do that can be expanded upon, but also retracted upon? Or is it better to go like the Dutch have and put specific things in there, but might limit things later on as we go?
Yeah, I think the 14th Amendment have given us flexibility over time, but I think increasingly as we're seeing with such a polarized society, such polarized in politics, I think the more explicit the better. Because it's written, right? That's the written word. That's the law of the land. And it's hard to question it and challenge it, right? It's hard for justices to say, well, I strictly interpreted it versus, loosely interpreted. And that's what the justices typically do. They either interpret the law loosely, that's typically associated with, more liberal leaning, or they interpret it strictly, and that's with more conservative leaning. So I think the more explicit, the better. Right now, look at our court. It's heavily divided one side, right? And we know that side that Justice Thomas represents. And so the more and more that we have such a polarized political system, I think it's better to explicitly mention things. That way, when it's called the question, when the Supreme Court has a case in front of them, there's no doubt what it actually states. And so in the past, I would have said, the 14th Amendment gives us more flexibility. It allows us to include more people as we develop as a nation, as a society. But I think we've come to a point where, because of our politics, because of the way our society has progressed over time, we need to go and really have things laid out to us and directly written down.
Okay. Now, the Dutch are great, but We got more. They got some competition in Europe.
They do. So let's turn over and let's queer up with the worldview. Ireland reveals an ambitious plan to become the best place to be LGBTQ plus in Europe. LGBT Ireland has introduced their goal, which will run between 2023 and 2027, focusing on research, LGBTQ plus awareness training, and combating anti-trans views in the country. It will also aim to offer more help to LGBTQ plus refugees and asylum seekers and advocate for certain legislative reforms in Ireland. Ireland might face some competition in achieving its goal, with the Welsh government has set itself the same target back in 2021. Commenting on the plan, Paula Fagan, the chief executive of LGBT Ireland, said, quote, "The past 5 years have focused on building a sustainable organization, expanding the services we provide, and developing our training and advocacy capacity. The ambitious plan we have launched builds on our achievements, harnessing what we have learned from our incredible member organizations and strategic partners, and sets us up for the next phase in our evolution," end quote. LGBTQ plus organizations in Ireland have welcomed the new strategy. Adam Long, the board director of Ireland's National LGBT Federation, told Pink News, quote, "We fully share the ambition of our friends at LGBT Ireland. Having been the first in the world to overwhelmingly affirm marriage equality by popular vote and pass progressive gender recognition reform the same year, we now need to see further progress concerning the likes of effective hate crime laws, a full ban on so-called conversion therapy, and proactive LGBTQ plus inclusion in all of our schools, among other key priorities," end quote. A spokesperson for Shout Out Steering Committee, an organization delivering educational workshops to help people become better LGBTQ plus allies, said, quote, "It's great to see that Irish LGBTQ plus organizations are aiming to make Ireland the friendliest LGBTQ plus nation in Europe," end quote. You know, this is pretty amazing given Ireland's history of being a Catholic oriented nation. The fact that they have made such tremendous progress in the LGBTQ movement is just amazing. I think they, in 2015, they voted for same-sex marriages. It just seems like they're leading the way in Europe. And it's such different than what we're seeing, obviously, in the United States with challenges to our community, whether it's the Supreme Court, whether it's our governor here down in Florida, DeSantis. So it's amazing to see that globally, despite what we're seeing in the United States, that there's still global efforts to continue to fight for LGBTQ community. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. This is sort of like the dream of task force, isn't it?
It really is. How nice it must be to be able to live in a country where your government is affirming your right to exist and, wants to proudly boast about it to attract people to come to it. I think on the national level, we have some strong advocates in our government, on the White House and in the Senate, and in the House for that matter. But, we're obviously facing a lot of challenges. We have a very diverse country with very different ideologies.
Yeah.
So it's super important right now that organizations like Task Force, GLAAD, HRC are all working to make sure that we're holding our public leaders, both civic and community-based, their feet to the fire to make sure that we aren't going to cede any ground on LGBTQ civil rights. We are going to defend the progress that we've made, and we're going to continue to make advancements because we have a right to exist. We're going to be unapologetic. We are going to be uncompromising. We're here. We're queer.
Yes, we are.
The DJ in me just wants to know what the parties are like out there.
They're amazing.
Oh, I'm sure they're.
I have never been. I'm dying to go.
Yeah, Dublin
I need
is.
a travel partner.
If straight Irish people are fun, imagine the gays. Wow. Even the straights
even
are
think of
somewhat
that.
fun.
What?
Yes. Yeah, and Irish
I need
is.
to contact somebody out there and get like a gig just to be like, I'll just come out and play. You just put me up in a hotel.
Yeah.
They are a fun country. It's a beautiful country. There is, believe me, Dublin is great. There is so much more outside.
Right.
Too. I mean, it is an Irish Spring commercial. I mean, it really is.
I
that.
love it. That's the
I've
reason I
heard
want to
nothing
go.
but good things about tours, like going to Ireland. My sister was recently there, and she loved it. And she said there there was a lot of queer visibility. She's not queer, but she attracts queers everywhere she goes. And she's like, oh my God, I've never seen so many queer people. But also Ireland is a Catholic country and can be very conservative. But because of its, like, I believe its anti-imperialist history with Britain and stuff, they also have quite a liberal and progressive culture. As a Palestinian, I know that a lot of the people who side with Palestine or happen to know a lot about it happen to be Irish in my life. They've always, been a little, one step ahead of other people. And I just think it's because they have a history of resistance and anti-imperialism. So in a way, it's also a very liberal place.
Well, Ireland is less than the population of South Florida. They're about 5.3 million people. And they're probably about the same size if you looked at a map. But they were undergoing sectarian violence like 30 years ago. This is not something that was even 100 years ago when the when it was really terrible. But
of course.
30 years ago, there were still bombings in Northern Ireland. There was still a huge, and we were afraid Brexit was going to repeal all this progress because of it closed some borders, but I think they worked it out. But if they were able to overcome sectarian violence and the terrible history that they had as recently as I said, the 1990s, then it gives us hope that we can overcome some of those divides 100%. In America.
100%.
You just have to look at the blueprint that they laid out.
If I could add one more thing, because the Catholic Church was mentioned twice. The times are changing. I would be remiss if I didn't say that one of the founders of the National LGBTQ Task Force was a Catholic priest who was a Jesuit who stayed in service to the church his entire life, while also being one of the founders and on the board of the task force. But also the Catholic Church recently launched a new group here called Outreach, which specifically advocates on behalf of LGBTQ people and is trying to reform the church to become more welcoming to the LGBTQ community. So I think that's in large part due to the credit of LGBT advocates. One of the task force's primary areas of work is faith work, because we don't want to cede that ground to the people who would like to use, who would like to misconstrue doctrine of differing faith communities to oppress us. And so, that progress, I think, both in Ireland and throughout the world, is really positive, and we need to celebrate that.
Yeah, and I would like to add too that, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're just increasing in numbers, right? And so it's actually smart strategy on a part of the government, Ireland, and in this nonprofit organization to make that, to put their stake in the ground, right? To say that this is what we're going to do. We're going to make Ireland the most LGBT friendliest place in all of Europe, right? It is great strategy. I mean, think about the tourism that will flock there because of their, what they're working on and how they're trying to make it a more open and welcoming place, right? And the LGBTQ community has a lot of, discretionary income, right? We spend like crazy. Let's be real. We were just talking about the winter party where people transcend from all around, all around, right? For the winter party, and they spend, I remember, I'm from New York originally, and I just lived down here a year. And for years, me and my friends would come from New York, a whole pack of us, 20 of us, from New York to celebrate the winter party or Miami Pride, right? And so I think it's smart policy, smart strategy to focus on a community that's not going anywhere, that's growing, that's becoming more and more diverse. And we're everywhere, right? The more nations and countries put a stake in the ground, the more we're showing up and popping up, the more people are excited about being gay, right? Is the fact that they can see themselves all around the world. So I'm excited about this. And I think you're right. Initiatives like this and what the task force is doing, it's just going to be encouraging for so many more people.
Yeah. One story before we move on that I want to share. I was in Dublin a few years ago, and I was with my dad, and we're walking through. Shockingly, we were passing a bar, but it had an LGBTQ flag, and not one of those little stickers that you see in the corner. It was like a decent sized little flag poster in the corner. And I was like, Dad, come on, let's go on in. Let's pop in for a pint. And so we did, and there were several couples, men and women, no same-sex couples, and I was like. And I was like, oh, I mentioned it to the bartender, and he was like, oh no, we're not a gay bar. Which I thought, which just hit me so hard, because they have the flag in there. They're gay welcoming, they're gay affirming, and that just summed up much of my experience at Dublin. They weren't a gay bar, but they put the flag out there that said, come on in.
We welcome you.
Have a pint. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful. I love that. Let's go ahead and queer up gay culture. Reviled reclaimed and respected the history of the word queer. Recently, several people have questioned or critiqued the use of the word queer to describe LGBTIQA plus folk. One writer of The Guardian claimed that the Q word was as derogatory and offensive as the N word and should not be used. While there is a clear history of the word being used aggressively and insultingly, the meanings and uses of queer have never been singular, simple, or stable. Queer is a word that of uncertain origin that entered the English language by the early 16th century when it was primarily used to mean strange, odd, peculiar, or eccentric. By the late 19th century, it was being used colloquially to refer to same-sex attracted men. While this usage was frequently derogatory, queen was used in neutral and affirming ways, and I meant queer. In the 1960s and 70s, as sexual and gender minorities fought for civil rights and promoted new ways of being in society, we also saw new names for ourselves. Gay liberationists began to reclaim queer from its earlier hurtful usages, chanting out of the closets and into the streets, and singing, "We're here because we're queer." In Australia, camp was briefly the most common label that lesbians and gays used to describe themselves before gay became more prominent, used at that time by both homosexual men and women. In the early 1990s, gay had come to be used more typically to refer to gay men. The language evolved to LGBTQ to recognize lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. From the early 2000s, it became more common to use queer as an umbrella term. Today, queer is included among the terms lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, gender diverse, intersex, asexual, brother boy, and sister girl. Now, I didn't know anything about brother boy and sister girl. That one just kind of cracked me up. I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at men going brother boy, and they're like, no, it's the opposite. So I'm like, okay, yet another thing I get wrong, and I learn so much when I come to report here at Queer News.
But you're a writer.
Understand my queerdom.
But you're a writer. You've studied the English language. Has this ever been a topic or something that you've explored further?
It actually hasn't, but I love listen, the way this story is put together is really quite sharp because it gives you everything from, you get the entire timeline. And I remember seeing, as I'm reading this and I'm kind of reporting, I'm going, yeah, I remember when we used to only say this. And then we started saying this other thing. And now all this other stuff is included. I'm like, now I'm just like the he, she, they, them. I'm so confused, but I just ask and say, what do you want to be called? And I'm good with whatever you want. So, inclusivity. That's all,
In comedy, I use queer a lot more than I do gay. Because I feel that when I say gay, only gay men or, cis gay men and cis gay women would respond. Sometimes not even the women. Lesbians would be like, you didn't say lesbian. And I'm like, well, I'm asking if there's gay people here.
I just feel like when you say queer, though, I'm like, are we back in the 70s?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
For me, it's an umbrella term. It includes everyone. Although I don't love it because I think that before comedy, I saw queer as kind of like leftover from like British imperialism and, a lot of the homophobia around the world in the Middle East and Africa and wherever they had colonies everywhere. India is left over from Victoria times. It was learned from Victorian culture. And queer was the word that Victorians used to refer to us.
Oh, you queer.
Yeah, you're queer.
But then you come to the U.S. and you're like, you queer or something.
Yeah.
And so I'm just.
So I think it's great. I think it's just, taking back the word. I like using the word to refer to all of our community.
Okay.
It is a more inclusive word.
Yeah.
I think so. Right. Absolutely.
I think I'll admit I'm someone who's evolved on the term queer. When I was much younger, I lived in Georgia, outside of Atlanta, and to me, queer was often used in conjunction with the F word.
Yeah.
And that to me is why there was an equivalency of it's a hateful word. Yeah. I also am totally against any kind of false equivalency. I think equating queer and the N word is a completely false equivalency.
False.
No, it's like
I'm as against that as I am people equivocating things to the Holocaust that are not the Holocaust.
Oh no.
So I want to put that out there, but my attitude towards queer has definitely evolved over the years. I do see it as an umbrella term. Heck, I work for an organization called the National LGBTQ Task Force. That is a mouthful.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm talking about our community broadly, queer is just a much easier umbrella term to use. And I do enjoy the rich history of it and the idea of it being something that represents all of us.
Yeah.
You know, words are power.
Yes.
Words are power. And so when you say you don't want to equivocate queer to the N-word or other things, I think if people want to take that back, then I'm all for it. Because, I mean, I can't imagine listening when I was in college to The Chronic or Public Enemy without, you know, the way they, the Snoop Dogg and Dre and all of them rapped and told their stories. And using that phrase and word, which I'm certainly not going to use, was part of the way they expressed themselves and what was happening in Compton and Long Beach and every other places around the world. So I think words are power, and if taking something back and re-empowers us, like I think taking the word queer back has re-empowered us, it's fine. Up next, my favorite word, just call us sodomites. We're here for it.
All right, well, let's queer up education. Oregon School Board drops ban on gay pride and other symbols.
Newburgh School District quietly dropped its controversial ban on political symbols in classrooms last month. That ban did make national headlines, and Queen 6 followed the saga for over a year. In 2021, the school board banned Black Lives Matter and gay pride symbols, then expanded it to all political symbols to get around some legal challenges. Last month, the Newburgh Education Association settled its federal civil rights lawsuit over the matter. The school board will have to reimburse both the state and federal governments for part of their legal fees. And now, one board member is proposing a parental bill of rights.
ODE is simply run through with ideologues, radical ideologues who are absolutely intent on pushing this sort of garbage down our kids' throats. And so parents have to stay vigilant, and the school board has to be a bulwark against that.
In a statement, the Newburgh Education Association says the ruling protects marginalized populations in the schools.
A school district in Oregon has quietly rescinded its ban on educators displaying symbols of the Black Lives Matter movement or gay pride. Following a court settlement with a teachers' union, Newburgh, a town of about 25,000 residents nestled in Oregon's wine country, has become an unlikely focal point for the national battle over schooling between the left and right. Newburgh lies 25 miles southwest of Portland. In 2021, the school board banned school staff from displaying Black Lives Matter and gay pride symbols, then expanded the ban to all political or controversial signs after being advised the first rule wouldn't survive a legal challenge. The Newburgh City Council and multiple Democratic members of the Oregon House and Senate all condemned the school board's action. The Newburgh school board voted unanimously on January 10th to rescind the controversial policy. A month after the Newburgh Education Association announced it had settled its federal civil rights lawsuit over the matter. Newburgh School's Superintendent Stephen Phillips told Oregon Public Broadcasting that, quote, "The policy will not be amended or changed. It is gone," end quote. The local teachers union said the court settlement includes the school board reimbursing both the National Education Association and the Oregon Education Association for part of their legal fees. The Yamhill County Circuit Court ruled earlier that the school board's policy violated the state constitution's free speech guarantee. Talking about the ruling, the Newburgh Education Association said, quote, "It protects the marginalized populations in our student and staff bodies. We can continue to create safe spaces in our schools and offer support to students who identify as LGBTQIA plus students and students of color without fear of retaliation." And I'm so glad to hear some positive news for LGBTQ and queer students because
and at a local level,
at the local level, because there's just not a lot happening, especially here in Florida right now. And we really have to keep an eye on the Miami-Dade County School Board. They are dealing with this exact same issue. They have been talking since I think it was December about how to amend their flag policy. I know that they're their primary issues. They want to make sure that the American flag and the Florida flag are prominently displayed in classrooms, but there also seems to be some energy around making sure that other flags, particularly pride flag or other political signs, do not make their way into the classroom.
Yeah. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe. Also, the Northwest coast is quite progressive politically compared to the Southeast, at least. I think people are realizing too, these are just not they're not just flags, right? They are movements. I heard someone say, oh, if you can have a pride flag, well, I can have a Confederate flag. There's no movement for that. You know, there's no, history of you living under oppression or the reason for you to have to do that. And I think if people need to realize, especially the Black Lives Matter, I mean, both flags are important, but Black Lives Matter is very important to, especially if you're a teacher or school, to support some way or allow its presence, because it literally, it can make your students of color feel, unequal or in danger or, unseen.
It's not even about the flags. It's about starting a conversation about these really important issues that are happening in our world. It does our students no favors to pretend like current events don't exist, to not be able to contextualize what is going on in the world around them and help them to understand and process that information. And it's also about just indicating to students who feel marginalized, who feel like they can't live their full and authentic selves, where they can go and talk to someone that might be able to help them. Just imagine, you don't even have to imagine, I imagine anyone on this panel, but like if you're an LGBT student and you just need an adult to talk to help you process, the things that are going on in your life, and just knowing that there's, someone in your school, a teacher, a counselor, an administrator, that you can go and feel welcomed by and be honest with, how important that is.
Yeah. And I think these flags are symbols of who we are as a nation, right? We are a diverse place, right? We're an inclusive place, right? Yeah, we have some fashions in our country that are trying to eliminate, the presence of these flags in school buildings and other places. But the reality is the United States is a land of the free, right? It's an open place, right? It's the most diverse place in the world, right? This is where people come because of who we are, right? The riches of our country. And we need to be able to teach that in our education system, right? We need to make sure that we affirm that black kid who's in a Newburgh school district, which is right outside of Portland, right? Which he's probably the only black kid, or there's probably like 2 or 3 black kids in the school, right? To affirm that you're welcome here. You're welcomed here, and you're a part of us as well. We might be majority one, but you're welcome just as well as everybody else is here. And that's critical. That's critical for young people feeling safe, that sense of security, that self of belonging. It's been proven that if you don't feel safe in a school place, oftentimes, particularly young kids of color, and I've seen this in New York a lot, where if they're in a majority one race or ethnicity school and they are the minority, if they're not accepted, if they're not feeling welcome, oftentimes we lose those kids, right? We either lose them to the streets or to other, who knows what, I don't want to name it, but we've seen it time and time again. So that inclusion, that showing signs of acceptance, that showing signs of welcoming is important, not only to kids of color, but especially to kids that identify like us around this table of LGBTQ. So I think it's about teaching young people of who we are as a nation. It's really, really critical, and that we are a welcoming nation. And I say, I want to say some words, but I can say, really to those who don't believe in this, like you don't represent the good aspects of our nation. The good aspects is that we are diverse, we're inclusive, and we love everyone here. And we want everyone to be welcome, particularly in our education system. And it's amazing for them at the local level doing this.
Yeah. And, to your point, school boards like in Miami-Dade are where the real elections are held, where the foundational elections are held to set policy. And I believe the Proud Boys have taken over the Miami-Dade Republican Party, and they are infiltrating our school boards, shouting down anybody who disagrees with them. And of course, we still have yet to see what terribleness is going to come out of Tallahassee this year. We've got wonderful people like Scott Galvin of Safe Schools and Max Fenning of PRISM who are going to be keeping an eye on that, fighting that every step of the way. And the easy comparison to make, of course, is to contrast the liberal Northwest with what is essentially now deep red Florida. But I think this shows that the coasts are very liberal. This is just about 25 miles, 30 miles inland, and they've essentially got a red school board. They're a red area that is saying we don't want to do this, and they're only doing it because the courts are making them to. So you don't. I don't know why, and I'm sure there are great studies out there that would explain it to me very well. But you go just a little bit outside those cities, and you're not in friendly territory anymore. It's not just regional. It is parts of the state. You know, like we've got Broward County here, and now we can't even really say South Florida. It's Broward County and sort of Palm Beach County because Miami seems to have abandoned us as well. So it's something we need to keep an eye on and keep open minds about. Don't assume people are good. Don't assume people are bad, but keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would love to add so much to that, but let's
just travel.
Well, just one thing I wanted to note that you said, and you know, I say this as an observation. Yeah. I'm an American now. I'm an American citizen, but I immigrated here from Guatemala, a country where I couldn't really be publicly as openly gay as I am right today there. And most people can't. What I've noticed about the United States, like you said, outside of the coastal cities, it's hard to be included or feel included as a minority, as a gay person, as a woman, as infinite things. Even as a straight man in many ways, as a non-toxic straight man or anyone who's different. You know, America has a problem with inclusion. I think it has to do with its, you know, settler colonial history and its segregation history and all that. But it's you know, it's, I don't know, just noting that. Anyways, on to lovelier topics like travel. Let's queer up travel, people. Here are the 5 queer February Valentine's Day events that you can travel to and probably should. Valentine's Day is February 14th, but these events demonstrate that queer love is celebrated all month long. Here's the list of events you cannot miss. The first is the 12th annual American Indian Two-Spirit Powwow. This event will be celebrated in San Francisco on February 4th. The Bay Area American Indian Two-Spirit Organization sponsors this annual powwow for LGBTQ plus Native Americans, one of the oldest and largest in the nation. The next event is the Outing Festival, which will be celebrated from February 10 to 12 in Drumland, Ireland. Speaking of Ireland, Eddie McGuinness founded that's the most Irish name I've ever said. Founded the Outing Festival. He founded the Outing Festival devoted to LGBTQ plus love. This year, the event is being held at the Inn at Dromoland in the romantic setting of Dromoland Castle Estate. The third event you cannot miss is the Sydney World Pride. That'll test your relationship. From February 12th to March 5th, it is one of the largest Pride events in the world. But this year, the city will also be hosting World Pride. So that's a lot of gay. And you will be able to enjoy Live and Proud, Sydney World Pride opening concert, the Mardi Gras Fair Day, the LGBTQIA plus Human Rights Conference, and Black and Deadly, the First Nations Gala Council featuring Aboriginal and Torres Strait LGBTQIA plus artists performing at the iconic Sydney Opera House. The fourth event you must attend this Valentine's Day event is the Mates Snowbound Leather Weekend. What is that? The 15th. The 15th. Sorry. From February 24th to 26th in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Sorry, there's a lot of events. We're busy. The gays are busy, y'all. It's a busy February, all right? Don't miss that. Leathermen and aficionados of rubber and uniforms flock to P-Town in winter to brunch and drink beer and dance and strip down to chaps and jock straps. This debauchery is all in the name of charity, of course. And the final event you should not miss this Valentine's Day month is Olivia's 50th anniversary Caribbean cruise from February 19th to the 26th. Olivia founded as a women's music company before transforming into the largest travel company for queer women, and is celebrating its 50-year anniversary this year. So, ta-da! Lots to do. Lots to do. I hope I gave all that information.
I'm like, no, I'm just booked. I do not have anything else.
I want to go where the boys are.
Yeah, I think Sydney.
Yeah, do you know?
I do. Okay. I love hanging out with the boys. They're more fun.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, Sydney Pride sounds crazy this year. It's World Pride.
Yeah.
So that must be, I mean, pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would take a relationship to
I would
World
not.
Pride. I just don't feel like that. I feel like you're gonna go there, and I would take. Excuse me. I would take a boyfriend to World Pride if I wanted to end our relationship and come back single.
Yeah, it's like see, we should be seeing other people. There's so many people. Yeah, that sounds
Body
crazy.
man.
Yeah.
World Pride was in New York, what, a year or two ago?
4 years ago.
4 years?
20
Was it that long ago? My
Last
God.
year, I believe, was
Yeah.
Madrid.
No, they only have World Pride every couple
years.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Is it
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
Olympics? It's around
like
every
the
4
Olympics.
years.
You put the gay games with it a lot of times.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
The next
I mean,
one's
it
gonna be
takes
in
4
DC.
years to recuperate from World
Yeah.
Pride.
Wow.
So the hangover lasts 3.5.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I need to go to this party.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so, but you know what I've liked increasingly about Pride and just World Pride is that, the increasing focus on like social justice and advocacy and education, and then family oriented. I'm a single gay dad, and so I love taking my son, who's 10 years old now, to these events. My son, grew up going to drag shows and just being a part of the community. And so I loved, while I love all the partying, especially being single now, it's a lot of fun, of course, but I do love, how it's very diverse. Pride has become, and it's, really increasingly attracts families and others.
Yeah.
And then, over the last couple of years, this emphasis on social justice, social equity, and advocacy. I'm a political scientist by trade and a therapist, and so for me, I just love being a part of those conversations and seeing people get engaged and seeing people get excited about the issues that impact our community. We've talked a lot earlier about trans and attack on the trans community, and so World Pride, while we can have a lot of fun, we can talk about serious issues as well, and that's the beauty of our community, right? It's just so diverse as us being out there to 24 hours and partying all night to us talking about issues that really impact us that we can make a difference on.
Now, as everybody knows, I love love. I love love, and love loves me. But I want to put you all on the spot, and I don't need the full story because we'll go an hour. But where was the most romantic place you've spent a Valentine Day? Just one. 3.
Well, there was this glory hole.
All right, that was my Hollywood Pride last year. All right, doctor.
Italy. So I was in Florence, Italy. It just was amazing. The Ponte Vecchio Bridge, a great Italian date that I had. It didn't last long, but it was great and romantic. So
Nothing
definitely
says romance like the statue of David.
That's right.
Yeah. It's like, you don't look like that.
Well, it's been 100 years since I've been in a relationship, so let's dial back. I would have to say the lesbian in me loves a freaking log cabin all the way in the boonies of New Hampshire.
Aww.
But it was nice. It was very nice.
Snowy?
Yes.
Fire in the fireplace?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
And fire pit outside.
Okay.
It was nice. It was cool. Cool little thing.
I'd have to say there's a little hibachi restaurant in Tallahassee. It is not the most romantic place, but I enjoyed it, going to it so much with, I had a friend in college that every Valentine's Day that we were single, we just knew we had a standing date and we would go there for Valentine's Day together. And that's just one of my favorite memories of Valentine's Day. It's just friends loving and supporting each other.
How very
That's so cute.
Valid.
Yeah.
Harry met Harry?
Yeah.
Right.
How binary. Anyways. Yeah. No, I spent a Valentine's Day in Atitlan, Guatemala. My country is beautiful. The Lake of Atitlan is one of the most romantic places. And it's quite gay friendly. A lot of older gays have retired there. Some, Guatemala gays moved there to have a more open
So the
lifestyle.
older queens who can afford
And the glory hole.
And,
That's most
and the
important.
glory hole, is blessed by the Mayans. No, I'm kidding. It's an ancient glory hole.
Will there be chanting this evening? No.
There will be.
All
So
right.
that's on my list. So let's move on to Queer Up Entertainment. GLAAD announces nominees for the 34th annual GLAAD Media Awards.
So, let's begin with our first category. Outstanding Reality Program Competition. Oh, in it to win it, honey. The nominees are The Big Brunch, Dancing with the Stars, Legendary, Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls, RuPaul's Drag Race, So You Think You Can Dance, Top Chef, Upcycle Nation, The Voice, and Worst Cooks in America.
Good luck to our season 14 queens. And now, the nominees for Outstanding Music Artist. Music to my ears. Anita, Betty Who, Demi Lovato, Fletcher, Haley Kiyoko, Honey Dijon, Kim Petras, Muna, Orville Peck, and Rina Sawayama.
GLAAD, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer media advocacy organization, has announced the nominees for the 34th annual GLAAD Media Arts. Current RuPaul's Drag Race stars Selena Estides and Sasha Colby announced the nominees in a GLAAD drag story time video that debuted on GLAAD's YouTube. The GLAAD Media Awards ceremonies will be held in Los Angeles at the Beverly Hilton on Thursday, March 30th, and in New York City at the Hilton Midtown on Saturday, May 13th. This year, GLAAD announces 295 nominees across 33 categories, including 2 new categories: Outstanding Podcast and Outstanding Live TV Journalism, Segment or Special. The Barbara Giddings Award for Excellence in LGBTQ Media will be presented to the Los Angeles Blade and the Washington Blade this year. The Washington Blade is the nation's oldest LGBTQ newspaper. GLAAD is presenting special recognition honors to 5 media projects and individuals that spotlighted diverse segments of LGBT community. Alejandra Carbajal, Drag Story Hour, Jared Carmichael's Ron Daniel, the Lesbian Bar Project, hashtag Letters for Trans Kids, and En Sus Palabras. Sorry for butchering all that. For the first time ever, the Outstanding Reality Program category will also split to nominate both reality competition series and non-competition series independently. The Outstanding Kids and Family Programming category was also split to nominate animated and live action programs independently. This year also includes 10 nominees in the Outstanding Film Wide Release category for the first time. Since 1990, the GLAAD Media Awards have honored media for fair, accurate, and inclusive representation of LGBTQ plus people and issues. You know, what I love about GLAAD this year is that it's inclusivity. Increasingly, there's different forms of media out there, whether it's broadcast journalism or podcasting, and they really are embracing the different venues under which people are presenting their art, their skills, or reporting general news and information. And so I love to see that inclusion, much like how you know, our world is become more diverse. GLAAD's become more diverse with its representation of how it's honoring different people in different categories. So it's amazing to see. It's almost a mouthful earlier to read this story with all the different categories. And it's really hard to keep up, but
300
I think it's amazing.
Though. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. And I mean, the bigger moral of the story is the number of us represented in the media. It's amazing how we're increasing over time. And in the 34th year, we have nothing but to be proud of where we've come. It's amazing.
Also the diversity and representation, you know, if you're Latino, if you're, you know, there's so much different representation now, because even I could say, Netflix, for example, I can say that 30% of the LGBTQ plus characters that I watch on their shows are written by, they seem to be written by straight people. Like, you know what I mean? They seem to represent straight people ideals for us or for queer people. You know, they seem a little off. Still, and that's how it used to always be. I remember when GLAAD would condemn most of the media that was being put out there, a lot of the movie roles and stuff, because they were, you know, either, you know, perpetuating stereotypes or inaccurate or, you know, blah, blah, blah. So just to have so much, you know, diversity now in the queerness is great. You know,
I can be happy about all of that inclusivity, but truth be told, I didn't know half of these shows. So I take notes. I'm like, I must watch this. I must take another note and watch this other thing so that I can feel included in these conversations. A lot of times I'm just.
I know about that. What is it? Horrible chefs or bad cooks or whatever? Because one of Villain students just got on it. Paris. He's queer, and he will be
Horrible Chef.
Yeah, Horrible Chef. It's funny.
Holy
it's a funny
cow.
show. He just moved to LA because of that show. So take classes at Villain Theater. You know what I mean? Just to mention, it's South Florida talent, so I think it's South Florida queer talent. So I think it's worth noting.
And we've talked about Ryan Murphy's speech at the Golden Globes last week or the week prior, that where he thanked everybody and just really shone a spotlight on not only himself but the people that are building these characters, that are enveloping them. Many, many years ago, and I may be the only person old enough at this table to remember it, there used to be the Cable Ace Awards. The Ace Awards had their own, the Cable had their own award show to honor work in cable. And eventually they were just absorbed by the Emmys because great talent started going to cable. And of course that is a trend that has continued through cable, premium channels, and now streaming. So my question is, are the GLAAD Awards still relevant? And if they are, will they be for long?
I say absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe more than ever now.
Yes, the entertainment industry is responding to our call for accurate queer representation.
Yeah.
The fact that there is an abundance of shows that you haven't even seen all of it. None of us have seen all of the incredible content that is out there because there is just so much of it right now. And that's fantastic. We had great shows come out this year. Heartstoppers, Interview with the Vampire. My gosh, like just beautiful LGBT storytelling that wasn't, you know, some of the things that I used to like cringe about when I would watch older content that would come out would be how focused it was on either stereotypes of the LGBTQ community or just focused on trauma and
100%.
sad endings for LGBTQ characters. But really, you know, we have love, we have happiness in our lives, we have goals, we have families that we form. We want those stories told.
Yeah,
that's funny that you mentioned that, because when I dial back and I think about some of the first films that I viewed, part of, you know, the LGBT community, they were all quite negative. I mean, the only one that actually, even for women, had some oddly positivity going on there, and sounds crazy, but Go Fish. If you've never seen Go Fish, that was a little bit ahead, you know, because, you know, it involves women, one, but, you know, can I find the right one, and will I get the girl? And I did get the girl, yay! You know, that's the only positive one, because after that it was like Boys Don't Cry, I think, with Hilary Swank, right?
And it's a great movie, but it's not positive at all.
Exactly.
You know, it highlights, you know, the horrible things some, you know, trans people,
things that happen, you know, in our community. And
as a gay man growing up watching the media, it was like, you're gonna get AIDS and die. That was the message I got.
Oh,
you're gonna become addicted to drugs. You're gonna get AIDS, and then you're gonna disappoint everyone and die. And we kept seeing that message over. My generation, I grew up born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. I can see we're still traumatized by the idea by Philadelphia.
Oh,
you know,
God,
you know.
But that was the first movie that really told our story.
And actually told, and actually, you know, showed us what HIV was actually doing to us. It's not just destroying, you know, like our bodies, but in our entire lives and livelihoods. But most of the, you know, like, do you guys remember the Al Pacino movie? That this show, Cruising, For example,
So
that
I
movie
love him,
was
so, I know all his movies.
And also the
And we share the same birthday.
Angels in America.
Yes.
Oh, that was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was really
But see, those are stories like Angels in America, for example. It seemed like a story that was made by gay people, or that you know, really told showed our lives the 360 degree view of our lives. You know, maybe some of us dabble in drugs, and maybe some of us, you know, did become HIV positive or something, but it doesn't mean that that's everything, right? Like, imagine if we just focus on the same
I think the one TV show that's still sadly getting it wrong is the L Word. They're still getting it wrong.
Really?
Because I think they're stuck on their own
Listen,
formula.
even the reboot is.
No?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Okay.
I've heard the
You
same
want to know
thing.
why? Because
tell me.
here's the thing. The argument of the L Word when it first came out was, all these women can't be that beautiful. You know, there are some ugly women in our crowd. So they were kind of like, it's too pretty.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is not realistic. We're never going to meet women who look like this or who have these kinds of jobs, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So
but
that's
it's not
why
like every doctor looks like Grey's Anatomy. Like you go to hospital.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
No,
television.
I only go to pretty
everyone's
doctors.
slightly
I
better
only go to
looking.
pretty doctors.
Yeah.
Hello.
And you're a doctor, and you're very
right here.
pretty, so
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to have you here.
I know what they mean, though. I know people want to,
Right.
yeah.
You know,
although
you wanna see a
usually in
little bit-
television, you see the prettier version, whatever we consider,
right.
more.
And then the new one is kind of the same way still.
Yeah.
Everybody on that show is good looking.
L-Word was a response to Queer as Folk, the original version, because they were like,
Exactly.
there's no television for
like,
gay women and lesbians.
And Queer as Folk, the old formula wouldn't fly today. What 5 cis white guys? There's no trans representation. There's no people of color.
Man.
There's no.
There was barely an old.
And it was very toxic masculine. Like they were selling a very masculine gay man. And most of the actors, I believe, were straight. At least the main characters were straight.
Yep.
So that formula today would have to be completely different.
But
And they did do with Queer as Folk, right? There is a reboot
Yeah.
on Peacock,
I wanna watch
which
it.
is it's canceled already. Oh my God!
Canceled,
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Canceled.
It was good.
It was marginally adequate.
It was marginally adequate. The thing is, but
it was
back then we
much
didn't
more
have
diverse.
anything else.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's why we watched it.
That's right.
Now we can choose what gay show.
Okay,
we
but
wanna
I shut
watch,
you down, and I apologize.
No, I
why
shut
did
him
you
down,
like
actually.
it?
And I've shut everyone down. So.
You always do.
It was more diverse, which was great. The problem I had with it was the whole precipice of the show was around a gay club shooting that was
Right.
way
Terrible.
too close
Too early.
to pulse.
Yeah.
And that just did not need to be the inciting factor. That, as a LGBT person in Florida was incredibly uncomfortable to watch and was just hard to have a whole season of a show based on that.
Agreed.
I think the beauty, though, is that we're talking about this, right? That the diversity of different shows now versus I remember growing up, there was none on TV, quite frankly. And then for me, a little boy from the Bronx, a diverse kid from the Bronx, and my dad caught me watching anything that was gay, he would whoop my ass, right? Because he was from the South. Excuse my French. But the beauty is that we're discussing it, right? And that there are these diversity of shows out there. One of that I like, and I had to make a plug for this, is like Love Victor. It's like this, it's from Love Simon, but it's, about a Latin kid, and it just follows him through, his journey with his sexuality and different relationships. But the beauty is that we have these to talk about, whereas we didn't have them, or we had to search far and few between to find them, or the representation wasn't accurate or correct. And so the beauty is that we can discuss it today.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
Pose is
good
getting
luck,
it
and,
right.
Yes. And good luck to all the nominees. It's an honor just to be nominated. But also, I'd like to recognize that even though Al is not here, he still managed to get RuPaul into the show. So, watching you, Al. All right, we move on and we queer up South Florida and Florida. The World AIDS Museum Red Dress, Dress Red Gala is coming up.
The World AIDS Museum and Hunters Nightclub proudly present the Red Dress, Dress Red Gala, February 4th at the Design Center of the Americas.
Tickets available at rdgrgala.eventbrite.com. Show up to show off your most lavish red attire.
That night's going to be so fun. The World AIDS Museum and Educational Center launches the first South Florida Red Dress, Dress Red Gala, 6:30 on February 4th. The event has been happening across North America in various cities since 2005. Now it's making its South Florida debut at the Design Center of the Americas, or the Dakota to those in the know, and will help bring awareness to the HIV epidemic and raise funds for programming developed by the World AIDS Museum and Educational Center. And just one quick comment, I've talked with Terry Dyer, who is the head of World AIDS Museum. He's been putting a year of work into this. He has put so much time and effort, and I've gotten to see some of the plans behind the scenes. It's going to be such a great night. It's almost sold out. So if you're going to go, get tickets now and find something fiercely red to wear, because it's going to be great.
Thank you. I might just wear a red dress. So next up, we're proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International service at 10:30 a.m. every week.
Hi, I'm Chris Caputo, City Commissioner with Wilton Manors, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we continue tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News, we begin by queering up entertainment from LGBTQ plus news partner Autostraddle and writer Christina Tucker. The Fixer is a slow burn lesbian romance at its finest. The recent LGBTQ book review on the Autostraddle website, Christina Tucker reviews Lee Winter's The Fixer. Eden Lawless is an activist with a big heart who has the drive to do the right thing at all times. She's hired by Michelle Hastings to take down a corrupt mayor from her hometown. The reviewer says, quote, while The Fixer is largely about Eden, Winter slowly shows us different parts of Michelle, a woman so closed off and impenetrable that I was tempted to inform my own therapist that I am actually doing just fine comparatively. Read more at autostraddle.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News, let's queer up lesbian culture. From LGBTQ plus news partner Lesbian News, Roku Docu-Series The Lesbian Bar Project explores the last lesbian bars. The Lesbian Bar Project, a small group committed to empowering lesbian plus spaces, estimates there were roughly 200 lesbian bars across the United States in the 1980s. Today, that number has shrunk to 24. There are 8.5 million lesbians in the U.S. You can do the math. The Lesbian Bar Project is also the title of the Roku limited documentary series that the group launched in October of 2022. The series chronicles 3 of those remaining spots in 3 very different parts of the country. LBP also ran a 4-week fundraising campaign raising over $177,000 to support the lesbian bars. Read more at lesbiannews.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up lesbian culture. From LGBTQ plus news partner Pride and writer Bernardo Sim, Cate Blanchett has hilarious reaction to be called a lesbian icon. Cate Blanchett is one of the most famous and successful actresses in the world. She has earned 7 Academy Award nominations and won 2 Oscars. Blanchett is once again a frontrunner to win an Oscar for her performance in Tar, where she plays Lydia Tarr, a successful lesbian composer and conductor. During a recent interview with Attitude, Blanchett was asked to comment on LGBTQ plus publications calling her a lesbian icon. The actress responded, quote, yeah, baby, that's so nice. I don't know what it means, but it's nice. Yeah, cool. I'll take it. End quote. Read more at pride.com.
Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and radical conservatives have suggested the LGBTQ plus community has a secret plan. We can only guess it is for world domination. We couldn't agree more. And we are all going to tell you about it in our new segment called The Gay Agenda.
In The Gay Agenda, we queer up entertainment. Get to know more about Smiley. Hottie Carlos Cuevas and his stunning pics. Carlos Cuevas is starring in Netflix's gay rom-com series Smiley, which was released on the streaming platform on December 7th. Here are some less-known facts about Carlos Cuevas. He began his acting career at the age of 5, appearing in commercials. He starred as Paul Rubio in the comedy drama series Merlí. He also starred in soap operas and appeared in other movies and television shows, including Luna, El Misterio de Calenda, and Ahora o Nunca, among others. As a cherry on top, here are some steamy and stunning pictures of Cuevas.
In the gay agenda, we queer up travel. These are the top 8 best ways to see the world in 2023. There are lots of ways to see the world. You can backpack and hostel your way around the globe. You can join the Navy, or you could just watch Netflix. But if you have the means and you're not a big planner and you're looking to meet new friends along the way, then an all-inclusive group tour might be your ticket to a worry-free holiday. Following are some recommendations for travel companies that cater to queer travelers 50+. Oscar Wilde Tours, Out Adventures, Olivia Travels, RSVP Cruises, Detours, Gay Adventure Travel, He Travel, Toto Tours, and Puckett Excursions.
In the gay agenda, we also clear up politics. Florida Governor DeSantis organizing national charge against public education and anti-LGBTQ plus hate. Ron DeSantis' disdain for woke ideology is on full display. At his inaugural event this month, the governor boasted, "Florida is where woke goes to die." His statement is more than a political bluster. He is charging against public education and LGBTQ plus inclusivity. DeSantis has stacked the board of New College of Florida, a well-known liberal arts college, with right-wing ideologues, and has directed universities to report their diversity efforts and critical race theory classes to his office. DeSantis and others bemoan woke indoctrination, and their claim is that schools teach the wrong values.
In the gay agenda, we queer up lesbian culture. Here are special pictures of wives, Miss Puerto Rico and Miss Argentina. We love this couple of former beauty queens, Mariana Varela, Miss Universe Argentina 2019, and Fabiola Valentin, Miss Grand Puerto Rico 2020, revealed their 2-year relationship last year when they announced that they had gotten married. The two women met within the Miss Universe pageant system and regularly post adorable love-affirming photos of the two of them together. These are two talented, accomplished, beautiful women, and their love reminds us all that better things are possible. Here are the pictures.
Let's queer up South Florida in Florida. Gay fashion icon Tom Ford spends $51 million and becomes neighbor to Palm Beach's Donald Trump. Donald Trump may have another reason to avoid stepping out of the confines of his tacky MAGA mansion. As per Wall Street Journal, gay fashion designer Tom Ford has dropped $51 million on a sprawling Palm Beach estate. Although Trump has been no friend to the queer community in general, he and Ford, 61, have had a contentious personal relationship over the years. Though the chances of Ford and Trump running into each other at the local Starbucks are less than zero, at least there's one less supporter of his re-election campaign in the neighborhood. God bless America. That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headline. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm John Hayden. And on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Dr. Edward Summers, Tarek Turgeman, DJ Nana, and Ryan Hurst. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you a very happy good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the